So the time I got to guard Michael Jordan, Michael was awesome. And the one thing he said was, I'm going to play as hard as I can. He was like, I'm going to give you my all, but just don't hurt me.
1985, Villanova shocks the world by upsetting Georgetown.
1989, Princeton Tigers upsets Georgetown Hoyas.
In 1997, Coppin State upsets South Carolina.
2018, the first ever number 16 seed UMBC upsets number 1 University of Virginia.
Everyone loves a great underdog story, the huge upsets, David beating Goliath. But what happens when there are no upsets? When the only people you get to see and hear from are famous people, the superstars, the head coaches, the celebrities. Are their stories more important? Do they matter more? Everyone puts in the same work, the same time, the same sweat. So who hears their stories? From the walk-ons, the assistant coaches, the role players, the 10th man off the bench. Everyone has a story and everyone has a voice. And on this podcast, you will meet these people, you will hear their stories in their own voices.
This is Underrated.
Welcome to Underrated. I am your host, Ray Hutter, and I have the pleasure of having my co-host, Dave Capers.
Thank you.
Welcome. And Dave is actually going to be our very first guest on Underrated. All right, and as you remember, Underrated is a podcast where you're going to hear stories that you've never heard before from people you may or may not have heard of before. And tonight we have Dave Capers, as I mentioned, and Dave has an amazing story. All right, I'm going to set the scene before we get into the conversation. But 25 years ago, in the March Madness tournament, all right, this is before they had True TV, TBS, TNT, all of these national broadcast channels. We had CBS, and the very first game on the first Thursday of the tournament, when there were only 64 teams and not the 68 teams that they have today, but in that first game at 12:20 tip-off, Dave Capers, a member of the St. Bonaventure Bonnies team, was taking on Kentucky with the legendary coach Tubby Smith and a few really standout players that went on into play in the NBA. And Dave, setting the stage here, you take Kentucky into the first overtime. Mm-hmm. Crowd's going crazy in Cleveland, rooting for you guys, hoping for the upset.
Yes.
And with about 0.6 seconds left, you get fouled taking a 3-point shot.
Yes.
And now you go to the foul line, you make the first shot, Tubby Smith calls a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
3-minute media break. You come back to the foul line, you make the second shot, Tubby Smith calls another timeout. Another 3 minutes go by in the media timeout, and now you come up to hit the third foul shot, which would tie the game. Mm-hmm. You hit the third foul shot, and you send the game into a second overtime.
Correct.
Amazing story. First game, as I mentioned, the focus is all on St. Bonaventure's versus Kentucky. Another underdog story, David versus Goliath. Take us through your mindset when that's happening. You take the last shot to try to tie the game, you get fouled. Take us through your mindset from that point forward.
Well, I knew there wasn't enough time for me to kind of do anything else but shoot, right? So as soon as they shot, as soon as my point guard passed me the ball, I shot it and I got fouled, right? The first thing that went through my mind was, I got to hit these free throws. I got to hit these free throws because I got a lot of people counting on me. The stadium was going wild for us to kind of pull this through. And I just remember, all my friends back at home, my coaches, my teammates, my parents, everybody. It was really just like everything was just spinning and going out of control in my head. Sure.
So you get to the foul line, you make the first foul shot.
Mm-hmm.
Tubby Smith calls a timeout. Now you're walking to the bench. Your teammates are all excited. The fans are going crazy, as you mentioned. In the timeout, is your coach talking to you, or like what are you doing during that timeout? Are you kind of like that pitcher who's pitching a perfect game that no one wants to be around, or the field goal kicker that's down 30 yards practicing field goal kicks? What was it going on in that huddle?
So it was a little bit of both, right? So my teammates wanted to talk to me, but then a lot of them was like, no, leave them alone. Like, let's just concentrate. My coach came over to me and he said Dave was going to hit these free throws, right? And then we were already setting up our play to play some defense. Really, it was nerve-wracking for me just because at the time, I'm not sure if you know, but I was a 55% free throw shooter. Never really took my free throw, my time on free throws. But I know I could shoot, right? I was a shooter. So at the end of the day, when I hit my first free throw, I would never forget it. My point guard Tim said, "Bro, whether you miss it or you make it, we love you." Right?
Right.
I know he was feeding me, because I know it was bullshit. But at the end of the day, like he was like, "You really hit these free throws. You better hit these free throws." Right. So that was my mindset, just really concentrating, knowing all the work that I had put into, and I had always had in my mind that I wanted like an ESPN moment, like literally, like every kid dreams.
Every kid, yes,
being like in the top 10 or whatever on Sports Center. So that was going through my mind as well. Like as funny enough as it is, but I was like, you know what? I can't be on TV for missing these free throws.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's funny, most people probably would have remembered if you missed the free throws
exactly.
more so than making it and sending it into the second overtime. And to your point, every kid dreams about being in that spot,
yes.
either to tie the game or win the game, and you're on the biggest stage of college basketball. Mm-hmm. And being that it was the first game where everybody's tuning in, they're not bouncing around between different games, so everybody's watching this game. So you make the second foul shot, and then the third one goes in straight like butter.
Correct.
I mean, you just follow through, everything goes in. So when you hit that third foul shot, you send it to a second overtime, everybody's giving you high fives, patting you on the back, saying great job. What's the mindset now? Like, do you guys think you have the momentum? You're going to come back and win that game?
We thought that there was no way that they were going to beat us. I mean, we always thought, even going into that matchup, it was a 12-5 seed, right? So that's like the upset seed. We matched up really well with them because we had a big team as well, and we were all veterans, all like fifth-year seniors. So it was a great time. But we really thought that we can actually beat them. Like we didn't have in our mind that we were going to go into overtime or whatever. We just thought that we had a better team,
right?
Like literally.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And I'm sitting here as I've gotten to know you over the many years that we still play basketball together. Hearing that story. I've known you for close to 14 years, and I didn't even know that story. And I'm a big basketball guy, and I'm just like, wow. And when I got to see the video, which the audience will be able to see as well, you really can see that the fans are behind you. They want you to beat Kentucky, and you go to the foul line, you make those 3 foul shots, and in between those timeouts, they're not just normal like 30-second timeouts. They have to go do the commercials and all of that. So you're going in from being in a rhythm to then a pause, back into a rhythm, to a pause, and now you hit that third foul shot. So amazing story. It's a story that you don't hear and you probably haven't heard until today. So Dave, let's take a rewind back from the Kentucky game, and let's talk about how you chose St. Bonaventure, because I hear that's an interesting story with a little funniness or a little funny something about it, but we'll get to that. But let's talk about that, because I remember seeing you play in high school when I was coaching at Champlain College, and you had a really good team. So it would be interesting to hear, like, out of all the schools that were recruiting you, why you chose St. Bonaventure. And don't leave out the funny part.
Okay, for sure. So I had a couple of schools recruiting me, right? I had Rutgers. I want to say I had Minnesota at a little point. Seton Hall. I was not really high on their list, but I knew Shaheen Holloway. And I was a really big fan of his, and I really wanted to play with somebody like that. But I wasn't number one, I wasn't number two. I was third on their list, right? So I was being realistic with myself as far as like how I can go and if I was going to get an opportunity. St. Bonaventure, they actually was in the A-10. The one thing that kind of attracted me to them was, well, one of my mentors, Shandu McNeil. He was a really great guard from New York that was there and really established in the city, and he taught me how to be a guard. And he was telling me, he was like, if you come here, it'd be the best opportunity for you because you have a chance to play. And that was my main thing. I really wanted a chance to play, not just sit on the bench. I really wanted to get a chance to get some experience. But just on a funny nugget, one of the other reasons why I chose the school was because at the time I had a high school girlfriend at the time, right? And her name was Bonnie.
Yes.
Right? And I just thought it was like an omen. I was like, you know what, St. Bonaventure, Bonnie's like, what's the chance of me dating somebody named Bonnie? And Bonaventure, I didn't even know Bonaventure existed until they started recruiting me.
Right.
And then once I found out, they was in the A-10, it was a decent league. They was at the bottom of the A-10, but they had nowhere to go but up, right?
Right.
And it was just a great fit. But yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend at the time, and her name was Bonnie, and yeah, I was like, I think this is a good fit.
So after you made that decision, did you let her know that was one of the reasons why that you Or
I
did
don't
you
think
give that?
I never told that to her, and we broke up after that. But I never told her that.
Well, if she's watching the show, she's going to see that now. So that's going to be a lot of fun that comes from that. So tell us about your experience. So you go from New Jersey, you go up to like the middle of nowhere,
Correct.
where it's ice cold,
Yes.
freezing cold with snow. Tell us a little bit about your time in St. Bonaventure, because I know we've talked about it in the past, just sitting like this, but in a gym somewhere.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience up there and what meant so much to you about being a part of that community.
St. Bonaventure is special. I cultivated a lot of brotherhoods up there, right? Meaning that, all of the guys that I was teammates with, like, we're brothers to this day, I felt really close to a lot of the guys on the team. I really loved the coach. He was a motivator. And then there was one guy, Rob Lanier, who was recruiting me at the time. He's a really good recruiter. He's a really good recruiter. And I just took to him, and he was telling me, he was like, I'm going to make you a guard, because that was the thing. I was in high school. I was pretty much like a 4 and a 5, but on that level, I was going to have to be a 2 or 3, right? And he was telling me, he was like, you have the skills, you just have to have somebody work with you on your guard skills. And he promised that he would help me. And then with that point guard Shandu, they kind of took me under their wing, and I became a guard with them.
Yeah. So talk about also, because when you're in a small town and you're a big fish.
Yes.
Everybody knows you, right?
Yes.
So when you're walking on campus or you're off campus, you're going to a restaurant, you're hanging out, everybody knows you. And that's kind of, like I said, everybody's dream, right? You want to be the big person on campus. You want to be able to have people coming up. You want to sign autographs and all of that. It's a lot of fun. So tell us a little bit about the community of St. Bonaventure and how the fans supported you.
The one thing that I love about that town was, no matter if we were 0-20 or 20-0, it was a sold-out arena every night, right? It was the only major sport that they had up there. They didn't have football. Right. We had baseball, which was our competition, but not really. So everybody...
It's always cold out there, the baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not a lot of people going out to watch baseball.
Exactly. So the community, they loved us. And the one thing that I cherish about being a Bonnies is that they never let me forget. Right. I don't care where I'm at. There's always somebody who went to Bonaventure or whatever, and they tell me, "Hey, you're the kid who hit the free throws and stuff like that." So it was like an iconic moment for our school, because even Woj, he never lets me forget. He's the one who actually sent me the clip. I didn't even know the clip was circulating, and he sent me the clip and was like, "Look, this happened 25 years ago to this day." But yeah, the Bonaventure community is very special, just because, again, it's the major sport up there. They love you. They never let you forget, and they always honoring us, which is, a great thing.
Well, and it's funny that you talk about getting the clip, right? Because we didn't know about this, and we play basketball all the time together. And so one of our friends sent out the clip, and you're going up there, and you're all of a sudden you're watching, and you're like, first of all, you haven't aged at all. I mean, that little Dave Capers on that foul line looks exactly the same as Dave, who's still dunking the ball in our weekend runs. So I mean, that's what's funny is I'm like, man, he looks exactly the same. And so many of our friends said that. They were like, damn, Dave, you haven't changed at all. But we got to see the clip, and when you look at it, and then as a player, everybody knows this, but as a player, there's so much going on in that game, right? Yeah. And you're like so focused, and you got the crowd cheering, but you were able to tune out all that noise, and then you go back, and to your point, it's an iconic moment for the school. Mm-hmm. It's something that they'll always remember, and when St. Bonaventure in the future or whatever knocks off that next top seed or whatever, they're going to bring up, well, back in the this time there was Dave Capers banging out those 3 foul shots.
It's a shining moment.
Were you in one shining moment?
I believe I was, yes.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to go back to the tape on that, because that was always my dream growing up. Like, whether winning or losing, I wanted to be in one shining moment, but they don't do that for Division III players. So, I mean, we have our own song, but it's not one shining moment.
Sorry, Ray. Sorry.
That's why I'm a little bitter. That's why I play tough defense still.
I can tell. I feel it every Saturday. I feel it every Saturday.
So let's talk about this, right? So after St. Bonaventure, you go and play professional overseas.
Correct.
So talk about where you played, how long you played, and some really great experiences that you had on those teams.
So I started off playing in the States, of course, in the USBL. That was like one of the major leagues. I believe like Anthony Mason played in that league. There's a lot of guys who played in that league, right? And when I started there, I had a bunch of guards that kind of showed me how to play basketball again. Like I was playing with Brian Reese, who's on my team. Went to North Carolina.
Yeah.
I had some guys from Florida State. I had it was a lot of great guys over there, and I met Mark Blunt.
Okay.
At the time, and his agent, which was my agent now, well then, which is Michael Hart, right? And Michael Hart had sent me over to I think Germany, and I played in Germany. I played in Finland. I played in Poland. Where else? I was in Mexico for 2 years, and then I did the NBDL or the G League, right? But it was great experiences in all those countries, and I cherished it. Sure.
Yeah. What was like one moment, maybe not an iconic moment, but what was one moment that, from playing overseas compared to whether it be Division I basketball or USBL, what was the competition level like? Because I know there's a lot of American players that go over there trying to, get their game up to be able to come back into the NBA. So I know there's a ton of competition over there. And as the European leagues, which now kind of dominate in the NBA, the start was really probably, your level, then obviously the 1991 Dream Team that, went over and destroyed everybody in the Olympics. But that's when like basketball really emerged overseas, and you started to see like, more and more players overseas that could compete in the NBA or in Division I college sports. So talk a little bit about your experience and the competition out there.
The competition was really good. I had a tough first month just adjusting to the referees. That was the biggest thing for me. It was because every time I made a move, they called a walk. Right. They called a travel. And it was different where you could make moves here and they don't call that, but there it was, my teammates were getting frustrated with me at one point in time. But I kind of got a hang of how I was going to be officiated. And, I adjusted. But being in Europe and playing in those leagues, the competition was really good. People think that it's a cakewalk when you go over there.
Right.
And the thing about it is, at that time, you were only allowed like 2 Americans on the team.
Right.
So they expected you to do everything.
Right.
Now you can have as many Americans as you want. So having a passport back then was, or a dual passport was like gold, you know. So a lot of people were trying to get that 3rd American and that 4th American on teams by getting passports. So again, just imagine you're playing and you have to be like that LeBron on the team. Right. You have to rebound, you have to score, you got to play defense, and this is what you're there for, right? So again, the competition was stiff, but at the end of the day, I was able to have a successful career, I believe. It was a great experience, but the competition was really good.
So it's ironic that you say that they called traveling on you, yet the whole Eurostep thing.
Oh my God!
I mean, that Eurostep looks like you're traveling every single time. So
time.
Maybe you were the person that developed the Eurostep.
Yeah, right. I wish. I got the short end of the stick with that because I was getting called for traveling, turn the ball over. So. And again, I remember my coach at the time. He was like, "David, you got to stop walking." I never figured it was the funniest thing, and I was like, "I'm not walking." It was so frustrating, but again, I caught up with it, and I had a great time.
So, Division I basketball player at St. Bonaventures, playing overseas. You come back to the States, and my understanding is, less competition, but you were in a couple movies.
Yeah.
And some commercials.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you definitely have the face for it.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. No, I did a couple of commercials. I had an agent at the time, and I thought I was some hot stuff back then. I was trying to do some modeling and all of that. So, but I got into a movie role. I did Just Right with Common and a couple, and all like. To be fair, it was a lot of New York City ballers in there.
Right.
So I was one of the guys in there. I was an extra. I actually did a Nike commercial. I did 2 Nike commercials. And the funny story was I was actually in Poland at the time. Was it Poland? Yeah, it was Poland at the time. And I had signed a contract with Nike saying that I would be back. I never thought I would get to commercial.
Right.
So I'm over there playing, and they call my agent, and my agent's like, "Did you sign something for Nike?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You got to leave now." They was gonna sue me because they was like, we booked this time for you, and you got the part, and you got to go back. So I had to cut my time short.
Right.
Was only there for like 3 weeks. But then after that, the coaches and everybody, they got somebody else to fill my spot. But yeah, I had a great time doing the commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like being on like the movie set?
The movie set was awesome. It was pretty cool. I mean, I got to hang out with Common for a little bit, and he actually came and worked out with us. He played basketball. He can play.
Right. Yeah, I
he
heard
can
he's
actually
a pretty
play.
decent player.
Kanye West was there. Paula Patton. It was Queen Latifah. We got to meet all these stars and stuff. But for the most part, it was just really us just sitting around waiting for the major scenes to happen.
Right.
But yeah, I'm in a couple of the scenes in the movie, and it was a great experience.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
That's pretty cool. Speaking of commercials, I don't want to change the topic here, but when we have one of our guests, AJ,
Okay.
I have to ask him about that Gatorade commercial from a few weekends ago when he was guarding me.
Yeah, you got him.
And I told him I'm going to bring it up, but he
Of
already
course.
said that you were like, Hutter's never going to let you live that down.
Never. You hit him back. You backed him down, and you hit him with the fadeaway. That was beautiful.
Listen, so AJ, when we have you on the show, you know what I'm saying? Well, I think we have a clip of that somewhere, or we will definitely make one.
Yeah,
So-
we'll make one. We'll make one.
All right, so just going through the checklist of all the things that you've accomplished, that probably no one has heard these stories, and they're phenomenal. Not just because you're my friend, but just it's such an interesting thing because there's so many players that want to play in the NBA. They don't get the chance, but then they get to play overseas, and now they come back, and their career either fizzles a little bit, or it doesn't amount to anything. But you come back, you're in movies, you're in commercials, and now today you're coaching at Cardinal Spellman High School in the Bronx. And I'm going to save one special topic for a little bit later because I think that's a good way to end this. But, talk about the difference because you were highly recruited. Now you're coaching kids that want to get to that level. But the recruiting world today is just totally different than it was in my day or, in your day. Talk about what you're doing to, at the Cardinal Spellman High School. What are you doing for the players to prepare them for what they're going to face either at the next level, but just the recruiting process as a whole?
I'm trying to get kids to be realistic, right? Because a lot of kids have these false hopes. They look at TikTok, they look at Instagram, and they see all of these highlights and reels, and it's really not about that. It's really if you're going to go and work on your game so this way you can get to the next level. And what I try to preach to them is I practice what I preach. Like we practice taking charges. I'm still taking charges to this day, and I tell these kids, like, look, this is a part of the game. Like you got to find your niche. You got to find what's true to you. What do you do well, and exceed in that, right? So as far as recruiting wise, now I try to let people know that you got to be a dog, and you got to be you got to put in that time and that effort.
Right.
It's not about talking about it. You really got to actually put in that effort. So I try to get into the gym with these kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever time that they have, right? Because I don't want a kid saying, well, I never had a chance to work on my game, well, I never had this opportunity. And we try to extend that opportunity to all of our kids. And I'm preaching to them, like, you can get paid to play basketball.
Right.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Like, I wish, we're out of our time.
Yeah.
I wish it was like 15, 20 years ago, I would definitely have worked on my game a lot harder.
Right.
Because you can see that goal is much more closer now.
Yeah.
Before, when we came out or when you were recruiting me, it was kind of far-fetched that you could make it to the league just because there's so many players and the opportunities were so slim.
Right.
Now, anybody can make it. And I'm trying to preach that to these kids. Like, you have an actual shot if you just put in the work. If you want to get there, you'll get there.
Right. Yeah. And with the NIL, like one of the things, and hopefully we'll have some guests that will come in specifically to talk about the NIL, but so many kids now that are in high school, to your point about putting in the work, they almost have to really put in extra work and dedicate their 4 years of high school because a lot of the Division I college coaches and even the top Division II coaches, they're all looking at the transfer portal.
Correct.
And, until that transfer portal doesn't have any more players in it, then they're going to start looking at the high school players. So unless you're like the top McDonald's American type, All-American type player, you're not getting looked at unless you're that top person in the state because of so many people that have the game experience that are averaging 12 points at Division I, put themselves in the portal. They're getting first dibs where before you had the team, a person would get recruited, play 4 years out of school, and the coaches never had to re-recruit. But every year they're re-recruiting, and they're recruiting for our college athletes first before the high school kids. So are you talking about like NIL portal to these kids and trying to help educate them so that they don't have that false hope that they're going to go somewhere if they're not putting in the effort?
Definitely. It's the major talk because, again, they're not taking high school seniors that are averaging 15 to 20 points. Like, you really got to be that guy, like an All-American, All-State, or whatever. And like in my day, it was different. I had like 4 Division I guys on my team, on my high school team. And today, if we were to come out, it probably might be 1 or 2, maybe, you know? And it's just the difference of the times, right? So, and I try to preach to the kids that you got to do a way above than what is expected of you, right? Because again, they're not taking high school seniors. They would rather take somebody who's experienced, who's coming from a JUCO, as opposed to a fresh, raw senior coming out of high school, who hasn't had that physicality or that type of play, right? Because that's where this really comes down to, is if you can kind of adjust your game to become or to play in that physical type of league, whether it's D1, D2, D3, and the different levels of it, right? So at the end of the day, I do try to preach to the kids that, look, you got to go way above and beyond, and just being realistic with yourself that can you play Division I basketball, right? Because again, they're not taking the normal Joe who's averaging 15, 20 like they did back in the day. Like, you really got to average 25, 30 and have a crazy highlight reel.
Yeah. And I appreciate you once again mentioning D3, because I think D3 players are very underrated, which, you know, is part of this show. So maybe we'll get a couple of them. You know, we'll interview a few of them.
There's a couple of Devin Georges out there who deserves, you know, a shot. And nowadays, a D3 guy is going to get recruited over a high school senior.
Very true. And the transfer portal, you're right. All right, so before we get to our overrated, underrated segment sponsored by Chile Shades, all right, before we get to that, because that's always fun.
Of course.
I want to have you end this episode with talking about the time you got to guard Michael Jordan at a summer camp.
So the time I got to guard Michael Jordan, it was the summer of '97. I think he had retired or he was just coming back. It was, I'm not sure which one of those years it was, but it was during that span where he wasn't playing, right? And we go to the camp, and my coaches are like, "Do you want to go to a Michael Jordan camp?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" Like, that was one of my favorite players, you know. So I got the opportunity to go, and it was a couple of, you know, NBA guys that were college guys at the time, like Sean Marion. I remember him exactly being there, and there was a couple other guys there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the competition was great. And Michael was awesome. He brought us into a room because he was going to play pickup with us. And the one thing he said was, "I'm going to play as hard as I can, but I just don't want you guys to hurt me." He was like, "I'm going to give you my all, but just don't hurt me." So everybody respected that. Then he's going around the room and he's like, "Who's your favorite player?" And everybody's like, Jordan, you know, Magic, Bird, Jordan. And I said, John Starks.
He's a big fan of John Starks.
Yeah, so he raised his eyebrows like, "You going to be in my camp and say John?" I was like, he was like, "You're guarding me." This is like, in front of all the counselors. I was like, bet. Right. So then I'm in the game with them, and it's the first pickup game, and I'm cheesing, like, and I'm back, and he's backing me down. He's smacking my arm, and he's like really trying to hurt me. Like, I'm like, this guy, like, he was serious. So he's backing me down. He hits me with a fadeaway shot, goes in, and I'm cheesing going down the court. Now, I never really respect other players, but that was one that I had to respect, right? And I'm like, all right, this is Jordan. Right. So then on the next play, I come down and I hit a 3, and he's like, "Oh, that was lucky."
Right.
Okay. He comes down and he just goes like this to the guy. He spins off me and then catches a oop. The whole crowd goes wild. I'm sitting up there looking like this. I'm like, wow, he just dunked on me.
That's Michael Jordan.
That's Michael Jordan, though. So I got it all on tape, and it was a great experience. But Jordan was really competitive. I was surprised on how hard he played.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the documentaries and you just see his career, I mean, he's competitive at everything, whether it's golf, basketball, business. He wants to be the best, and that's why he's the greatest. I mean,
that's the true GOAT right there.
Yeah, no, I mean, he everything he does it at 100%. And even, I know we talked about this a little bit, but even when he went and played baseball, like towards the end of his baseball stint, he was hitting home runs, he was catching the ball, he was throwing people out. I mean, you know, he's one one of those guys that just can do it all because of that competitive drive. He wants to be the best at everything. But that's great. And, you know, just because of when it happened, like you got it on tape, but that's like VHS, right?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to get that digitized so we can show it at some point.
I'll have it.
So we can get that. All right. Well, Dave, again, you're my co-host. You're my friend. Thank you for the time.
Appreciate
an amazing story. But we're going to end with our overrated, underrated section.
Okay.
Sponsored by our Chile Shades. So, again, we thank them. You can go to their website. We'll have it on the screen at the end of the podcast. But again, so overrated, underrated. I'm going to just give you 5 names. I want you to tell me overrated, underrated. You don't have to think too hard, but we'll start off with...
Is this with their basketball skills or...
This is just in general, what you think. But it's going to be basketball players.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't want to, you know, put like Bonnie or something like that.
Yeah,
You know,
we won't go that route.
That could go sideways quickly.
Real quick.
So, all right. So, LeBron James.
LeBron James. Underrated.
Underrated. Interesting. Very interesting.
Underrated.
A guy that I really liked and admired growing up, and this is kind of old school, but Mark Jackson from St. John's, the Knicks, the Pacers.
Underrated.
Underrated. You. Underrated.
Yes.
And just honestly, he doesn't get enough credit for what he did at Golden State building that team.
Yes.
I know Steve Kerr's a great coach and did a lot with it, but Mark Jackson built that team.
And he was a Knick too. So.
Of course. All right, so let's see. Michael Jordan.
Oh, underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah, underrated. Like he in today's day, you know, there's all the debate about him, LeBron. You know, he's gonna ever be my GOAT just because I seen him firsthand, literally play, and I'm like, this guy's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really set the bar.
And one person that I think is right up there and could be, you know, considered the GOAT, and obviously, you know, had the horrible, untimely death, Kobe Bryant.
Yes. Kobe Bryant is No, Kobe Bryant is underrated. He's underrated to me.
Yeah, because everybody talks about LeBron and Jordan.
And they leave Kobe out like Kobe was like chopped cheese or something. I'm like,
Kobe
this guy.
Kobe was the real deal.
He was.
I mean, and he had that same competitive drive that Jordan had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he hated losing.
Hated it.
You know, I saw a documentary where like Allen Iverson talked about how after they played the Lakers, Allen was like, "Hey, we going out, Kobe?" And Kobe's like, "No, I'm going to the gym." You know, like he just wanted to be right back in there working on his game. So
I know a lot of stories about Kobe, and he was special.
All right, and this is going to be something that we're going to lead into because we know we're going to have him on the show. Assistant coach from St. John's, Ricky Johns.
Overrated.
I agree. And I'm going to bring this up when we have him on the show. But you know, when I was guarding him on one of our Saturday morning runs, I mean, he's jacked. You know, he's big, he's strong. He's got the best lefty jumper I've ever seen. But he was driving to the basket, and I'm hand checking him a little bit, you know, trying to do what I can at my age. And he misses a shot, and he's like, "Hutter, you can't do that." And I was like, "Do what?" He's like, "You can't ride me the whole way down the baseline." And I was like, "Ricky, you're twice the size of me." And he goes, "Rules are rules." And I was like, "Really, Ricky? Really? I mean, come on." So we'll have to bring that up and you know, talk to him about that.
To Ricky's defense, though, he is one of the best shooters that I've seen to shoot the ball. Like, he can really light it up.
For sure.
He can really light it up. So I'll give him that. He can definitely shoot that pill.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining our very first episode with my co-host Dave Capers, who is also had an iconic moment in the NCAA, played professional overseas, was in movies and commercials, got to guard Magic Johnson. Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson is my favorite player, so I have to bring that up. But again, hell of a career, hell of a story that probably nobody's ever heard of. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
We look forward to our next guest, who is actually going to be Diane Garcia, who played on the women's national team for the country Chile.
Oh, okay.
So we are going to look forward to having her as our next guest.
Definitely.
So please come back, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
This is
Underrated.